Hello and welcome to another prediction video from Force 13. Once again, we're here in 2026 looking ahead to the hurricane and typhoon seasons in the Northern Hemisphere up ahead of us. Well, it's going to be an interesting one. I'm sure you've heard a lot of chatter about how we've got this developing El Nino and suggestions that the Atlantic might for once have a quiet season. Well, let's now take a look at what we're expecting in the Pacific in 2026. The 2026 Pacific hurricane season, that's extending from the continent of North America all the way out to the international dateline. We lump in the East and Central Pacific in with our forecasts. We are expecting a total of 20 tropical storms, 10 hurricanes, and 5 majors in the Eastern Pacific, including Central, in 2026. Chances of below average are at a mere 10%, near average 35%, and above average holding up at 55%. A little bit of uncertainty despite the El Nino for the Eastern Pacific. That number could be low if the El Nino really takes hold and we also get the conditions to match. It could be a low number. But there is a little area of uncertainty, especially around the mid-season, August, September, where it looks like activity might end up being suppressed. Whether that actually happens or not remains to be seen. Let's read the blurb. The building El Nino 2026 Pacific hurricane season expected to be active with much higher risk for land impacts. That's the biggest caveat here. Signals very strong for storm impacts along the Baja California Peninsula, way above average by the way, and the Gulf of California, possibly for multiple storms. As is typical in El Nino seasons, this also increases the risk of storms and their remnants reaching the southwestern United States. So a lot of moisture, tropical moisture coming in from these storms and their remnants could also cause major flooding issues, as often happens when these storms move into California and possibly even into the next state over, Arizona. Elsewhere, late season impacts for Jalisco, Guerrero, and neighboring provinces in Mexico also at a higher risk, with the potential for dangerous high impact storms. Think of all those El Nino years in the past. 2015, Hurricane Patricia, 1997, Hurricane Pauline, 2023, if you want to call it an El Nino properly, of course, Hurricane Otis. Not saying that we're going to get storms of that caliber necessarily, but we could get some very strong storms in the basin that could go on to threaten these land areas, generally towards the end of the year, October, but also can't rule out risks earlier on in the season as well. Quite often you can get that in July, August, on some occasions, but the strongest ones usually towards the end of the year. We are indeed expecting the most storms to form in September and October, 5 and 4 for both of those months. I wouldn't look too much into that monthly resolution. It isn't the most accurate. Look at those tracks. Obviously you can see those two little indications in the Eastern Pacific, and then look at the Central Pacific. We've put one there as well because activity is expected to be elevated with multiple storms and at least one hurricane expected in the Central Pacific. Now, the threat to the Hawaiian Islands, for those watching there, is at a typical level. So not to say that there's not going to be a storm in Hawaii, not to say that there is, just that the threat is what it usually is in a season, which is an interesting point because El Nino years usually bring the risk level up. However, for those who may be interested in Johnston Atoll, which is pretty much the only other landmass around there, the chances of impacts there are actually much higher than normal in 2026. Goes to show where those storm tracks might end up further south, and probably a few international dateline crossovers if we get those storms forming. Fascinating. Look at the potential storm impact percentages there, and you'll see that the chances are higher for a few of those locations along the coast of Mexico. It's entrenched a little bit further northward as well, that 5% marker almost reaching the US border, and 45% in quite a few spots in those vulnerable areas of Mexico. Jalisco, just south of Puerto Vallarta, and also for parts of Baja California, the southern tip in particular, but also a little bit further north as well. Big chances of storm impacts. Hawaii sits at 10%, the Big Island, 5% for all of the other islands, and Johnson Atoll, I believe, is at about 20%. So that's the Eastern Pacific. Just to recap those numbers, in the Atlantic, we are expecting 12 storms, 6 hurricanes, and 2 majors. In the Eastern Pacific, 20 storms, 10 hurricanes, and 5 majors. In the Western Pacific, 29 storms, 15 typhoons, and 9 majors, including what we've already had so far. And North Indian Ocean, 5 tropical storms, 2 Category 1s, and 1 Category 3 plus major.